It's May, and the last hints of spring are fading into the warmth of summer. Yuzuru, barely 15, is dreading what's coming, a matchmaking interview. His grandpa won't stop nagging him about getting married, constantly pushing him to settle down. Ever since he finished middle school, the pressure has been relentless, as if his age doesn't even matter. But he's just a kid, and marriage is the last thing on his mind. At school, he slumps in his usual seat, lost in thought. His friend notices and asks why he looks so miserable. With a deep sigh, Yuzuru explains how his grandparents are obsessed with having a great-grandchild. His friend laughs, teasing that he should just go ahead and get married to make them happy. Yuzuru, however, isn't amused. Every time he goes home, the pressure suffocates him more, trapping him in their expectations. With the matchmaking interview scheduled for his long vacation, he feels completely stuck. He has no plans to marry, but guilt lingers. He knows he's letting his family down. Seeing his frustration, his friend suggests a way out. Just make impossible demands, they say. Intrigued, Yuzuru asks what they mean. Grinning, his friend suggests the most ridiculous conditions. Someone foreign, with golden hair, blue eyes, and top-tier household skills, but still somehow a Japanese citizen. Yuzuru loves the idea, but decides to push it even further. Their scheming is cut short when Yuzuru's phone rings. His grandfather, clearly annoyed, announces that the matchmaking interview is officially set. He calls it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Smirking, Yuzuru lists his absurd conditions, fully expecting them to be impossible. To his shock, his grandfather doesn't even hesitate. He accepts the challenge. Yuzuru snickers, thinking there's no way a girl like that exists. But his grandfather sounds determined. Later, his friend casually mentions a name, Yukishiro Arisa, one of their classmates. She doesn't fit the description exactly. Her hair is a light brown instead of golden, and her eyes are green, not blue, but she's close enough. Plus, she's the school's admired beauty, famous for her elegance and charm. Yuzuru scoffs, finding the idea ridiculous. The thought of her showing up to the interview is laughable. His friend teases him, asking if he'd accept her if she actually did. Yuzuru frowns, admitting she's attractive, but not his type. She's too perfect, too untouchable, like a beautiful doll with no warmth. On the school rooftop, they watch Arisa below as she tends to the garden. Yuzuru shifts uncomfortably at the thought of her in a relationship. He insists there's no way they'd have any chemistry. His friend shrugs, saying personality matters more than looks. Yuzuru doesn't disagree, but the unease lingers, especially with his grandparents breathing down his neck. By the end of May, his confidence is shattered when he steps into a traditional restaurant for the matchmaking interview. Sitting across from him is none other than Yukishiro Arisa, greeting everyone with perfect politeness. Yuzuru feels completely betrayed. His grandfather's connections are too powerful. While their parents chat effortlessly, Yuzuru sulks, realizing he severely underestimated his grandfather. As his grandfather goes on about Arisa's beauty, Yuzuru feels completely trapped. But then, Arisa turns to him with a polite smile and says something surprising. "We've already met." Their parents are delighted to discover that they're classmates, calling it fate. Yuzuru's father, however, reminds everyone that it's way too soon to be discussing marriage, though some situations demand quick decisions. His grandfather ignores this and insists Yuzuru take Arisa for a walk. As they stroll in silence, the atmosphere is painfully awkward until Arisa unexpectedly apologizes. She admits she was forced into this by her stepfather and has no interest in getting engaged. Yuzuru blinks, processing her words. Then, for the first time in weeks, he feels a wave of relief. He's not alone in this mess. He admits he was also forced into the meeting and even set impossible conditions to avoid it. Conditions she somehow met. Arisa reveals that her stepfather told her Yuzuru personally nominated her, which leaves Yuzuru bewildered. To make things easier, Arisa suggests a fog engagement to keep their families at bay and avoid future interviews. Yuzuru hesitates, torn between telling the lie and enduring endless matchmaking sessions. Arisa waits patiently for his response, her determination making it hard for him to refuse. Before he can decide, a yelling cat stuck in a tree catches their attention. They wonder how the cat got so high, but now seems helpless. Arisa worries for the animal and urges Takasago Asen to rescue it. Reluctantly, as he's more of a dog person, he removes his jacket, causing Arisa to shout in flustered protest. However, she quickly realizes he's wearing a t-shirt underneath and feels embarrassed by her overreaction. Yuzuru tosses his jacket to her, confirming her athletic skills. He climbs the tree with ease, calling down to Arisa to be ready to catch the cat if it jumps. He reaches the feline and grabs it with the startled kitty bolts. As Arisa watches anxiously, Yuzuru loses his footing and tumbles from the tree. The fall lands him in the hospital with a fractured leg. His guardian listens to the doctor's advice, learning that Yuzuru will need crutches for a week and a month or more for full recovery. He grumbles, blaming the cat entirely for his misfortune. Arisa arrives with her parents, who apologize profusely. Her stepfather promises to cover all medical and consolation expenses, while Arisa looks guilty. Her mother, feeling responsible, bows deeply, trying to make Arisa do the same. Yuzuru grows uncomfortable and insists they stop. Observing the interaction, grandfather comments on the difference in Arisa's surname and learns her stepfather hasn't formally adopted her. The Imaji family, once prosperous, has faced financial struggles in recent years. Yuzuru's parents argue that he climbed the tree of his own accord, but Yuzuru weighs it off, insisting no one is to blame. As tension lingers, Yuzuru suddenly pretends to like Arisa, proposing to make her his fiancée. Arisa is stunned but softens when he winks at her. Realizing his intentions, she smiles and accepts. Their parents, delighted, cheer the happy engagement, while the two quietly share their shyness, wondering how they ended up in this whirlwind. Yuzuru and Arisa sit on a park bench, the gentle breeze carrying the faint scent of blooming flowers. She looks down, guilt shadowing her delicate features, and apologizes softly for the trouble she's caused. Yuzuru brushes it off with a wave, assuring her the fall from the tree was entirely his fault. But Arisa shakes her head, her voice trembling slightly as she clarifies that her apology isn't about the accident, it's about the engagement. Her worry spills out in fragmented sentences. She fears that the blame will be placed squarely on her when the arrangement inevitably fails. Yuzuru watches her with quiet understanding, his expression softening as he empathizes with her position in the Imaji household. He offers her a rare, reassuring smile, promising that the burden of this situation is his to carry, not hers. As she continues voicing her fears about being forced into a marriage for wealth or control, he glimpses the heavy weight she bears. Her gratitude for his support is genuine, and when he reassures her again, some of the tension in her shoulders eases. For a fleeting moment, silence envelopes them, both lost in their thoughts until Yuzuru glances at his watch and decides it's time to head back. The next morning, Yuzuru groans as his alarm clock rings incessantly, its shrill sound shattering the peace of dawn. Begrudgingly, he drags himself out of bed, wincing as his leg twinges in protest. The 1-hour commute to school looms over him like a dark cloud. Slipping on his shirt, he reflects bitterly on how his once simple life seems to grow more convoluted by the day. Just as he's about to take a moment to breathe, the doorbell rings. Yawning, he opens the door to find Arisa standing there, her calm expression betraying no hint of the awkwardness from the day before. She informs him with the same serene tone that she intends to assist him until he recovers. Yuzuru blinks, caught entirely off guard by her straightforwardness. Before he can fully process her offer, he fumbles with his crutch, slipping forward and falling face-first into her. Mortified, he scrambles back up, his cheeks flaming as Arisa helps him to his feet. Concerned, she asks if he's okay, but Yuzuru, flustered, dismisses her with a stammered reply. Arisa, unfazed, explains that her offer is only to repay his earlier kindness. Yuzuru hesitates, worried about what others might think if they see her helping him. Suggesting they avoid situations that could fuel rumors, he proposes she accompany him only to the apartment gate. Arisa nods in agreement, but before leaving, she suggests they exchange phone numbers for emergencies. He fumbles awkwardly with his bag, ultimately letting her add her number herself. She waves goodbye, reminding him to text when he's on his way home. At school, Yuzuru's friends gather around during lunch, one tossing him a loaf of bread as requested. They poke fun at his injury, laughing at his exaggerated recounting of the infamous cat-on-a-tree incident. Though annoyed, Yuzuru finds their laughter contagious and even smiles despite himself. However, their teasing takes a sharp turn when they bring up his marriage interview. Lowering his voice, he tries to divert the topic, but from a distance, his eyes land on Arisa. Seated in the cafe with her friends, Arisa looks poised and serene, her every move seemingly effortless. Yet Yuzuru notices the faint stiffness in her smile, a subtle crack in the flawless image she projects. Though her social skills appear impeccable, she seems to intentionally downplay her presence, blending into the group rather than drawing attention. He can't shake the feeling that her polished demeanor hides something deeper. When his friends tease him about his absurd matchmaking conditions, Yuzuru insists no one could meet them. They accuse him of lying, but the topic shifts before he can defend himself, sparing him further embarrassment. On his way home, Yuzuru prays silently that no one at school has caught on to his arrangement with Arisa. To his surprise, he finds her waiting outside his apartment building. Without a word, she takes his bag, brushing off his half-hearted protests. Riding the elevator together, her calm demeanor contrasts sharply with his lingering unease. At the door, she offers to help further, even suggesting she remove his shoes. Yuzuru declines, fumbling through his bag for his keys. When Arisa opens the door, she freezes, staring at the cluttered chaos of his apartment. Pointing out the potential hazards, she insists on cleaning his walking sticks before he can trip again. Pulling a cloth from her bag, she begins wiping them down with surprising diligence. Yuzuru waves her off, insisting he can manage, but her persistence wins. Reluctantly, she leaves, though not before repeatedly asking if he'll be all right. Moments later, Yuzuru stumbles over a misplaced item and nearly falls. Before he hits the ground, Arisa catches him, her grip firm despite her small frame. Embarrassed, Yuzuru thanks her, and she promptly requests permission to tidy his apartment. This time he reluctantly agrees, unable to argue with her logic. Arisa dives into cleaning with unwavering determination, transforming the cluttered space into a spotless sanctuary. Yuzuru, unsure whether to feel grateful or self-conscious, watches in stunned silence as she scrubs every corner. After finishing, she grabs the trash and heads out, promising to return later. Before leaving, she hesitates, asking about his bathroom situation. Yuzuru explains the doctor's advice to avoid full baths, but Arisa's expression turns contemplative. Worried about slippery tiles, she suggests assisting him while wearing a jersey for modesty. Yuzuru balks, but her unyielding determination leaves him no choice. With a resigned sigh, he agrees, albeit with a promise to repay her kindness someday. Later, Yuzuru stands at the bathroom door, nerves frayed. Arisa arrives promptly, supporting him with surprising strength. Her calm encouragement helps him step into the bath, and he lowers himself onto the stool with a deep breath of relief. She proposes continuing the routine for a week, earning a half-hearted nod in response. Afterward, Arisa inspects his refrigerator, her brow furrowing at the lack of real food. Yuzuru sheepishly admits to surviving on instant meals, eliciting a shocked yet determined expression from her. She returns shortly with fresh groceries and begins cooking. The apartment fills with the aroma of home-cooked food, and Yuzuru marvels at the spread she prepares. As he eats, he can't hide his surprise at the depth of flavor in every bite. His enthusiastic praise flusters Arisa, who admits she's unaccustomed to compliments. By the time she finishes cleaning up, she points out leftovers for his breakfast before departing. Yuzuru watches her go, her thoughtfulness leaving him both grateful and in awe. Sitting alone in his now pristine apartment, he reflects on the strange but undeniable warmth she's brought into his life. Meanwhile, Arisa walks home, her cheeks flushed and her mind spinning from the day's events. The next morning, Yuzuru and Arisa walk to school together, the air around them filled with a comfortable silence. As they approach the gate, Arisa begins outlining her plans for the day, mentioning her intention to tackle more cleaning. She asks him to separate items he uses from those he doesn't. His mind flashes to the email she sent the night before, gently reminding him to tidy up beforehand. However, he brushes off the thought and simply tells her to do as she likes, trusting her judgment. With his broken leg hindering his movements, hiding items he doesn't want her to see has been a challenging task. After school, they return to his apartment. Arisa promptly requests permission to use the changing room, explaining that she doesn't want to clean in her uniform. He waves her off, telling her to make herself comfortable, but before he can voice any concerns, she's already gone. He's left bewildered by how easily she trusts him, even while changing in a boy's apartment. Moments later, she reappears, now dressed in simple trousers and a shirt. Her casual outfit gives the apartment a subtly different atmosphere, one that he can't quite describe. Arisa dives straight into cleaning the living area, her movements swift and efficient. Seated on the couch, Yuzuru watches her and can't help but notice how her straightforward demeanor contrasts with her quiet nature at school. Her honesty catches him off guard, and he realizes she's far easier to talk to when she's not putting up a pretense. While she works, she teases him about how quickly his apartment becomes messy, adding that she'll help him keep it tidy. He uses the moment to ask why she seems so reserved at school. Though she doesn't answer directly, her expression hints at a deeper reason. Yuzuru pieces together the puzzle. Arisa's mixed heritage gives her strikingly Western features, making her stand out in ways that aren't always comfortable. While there's nothing wrong with being different, he imagines it's easier for her to blend in and avoid attention. Respecting her unspoken boundaries, he silently appreciates her decision to drop the facade around him. Her candidness is refreshing, especially compared to her usual guarded nature. As she wipes down the remote, he muses aloud that interacting with her honesty feels easier than navigating social masks. Arisa pauses and asks him to keep their engagement private, even from his close friends. Yuzuru reassures her, though he recalls the possibility that she overheard his earlier conversation with them. Her visible relief at his agreement softens her features. She insists she dislikes the idea of people assuming she has a boyfriend, prompting Yuzuru to joke that her beauty might cause an uproar if others knew she was visiting his apartment. Arisa blushes at the comment, but seems reassured they're on the same page. 10 days pass and his lay finally heals, freeing him from his crutch. Arisa stops visiting his apartment, and the difference in his daily routine is palpable. Another 10 days later, Yuzuru sits with his friends in the school cafeteria. Lunch feels oddly lackluster compared to Arisa's cooking. His friends immediately notice his newfound habit of eating vegetables and tease him, suspecting a girlfriend's influence. He denies the claim, but admits a girl helped him during his recovery. It pressed him to properly thank her, but he hesitated, unsure how to proceed. Soichiro, ever dramatic, teases him for keeping secrets, while another friend offers sensible advice. Directly ask what she'd like as a thank you gift. Yuzuru praises the idea, but soon finds himself caught in their friendly banter. That evening, alone in his apartment, Yuzuru agonizes over how to express his gratitude. He drafts and erases several emails before finally settling on one. When he sends it, Arisa's reply comes almost instantly. Her request surprises him. She wants to play a game she noticed in his apartment. Yuzuru smiles, her casual tone catching him off guard in a pleasant way. The next day, Arisa arrives at his apartment dressed in a crisp white blouse and beige pants, her presence understated yet brightening his small living space. She steps inside, her gaze sweeping over the tidy room. Offering a rare smile, she compliments his effort, and he feels a small surge of pride. When she heads to the kitchen, she comments on his lack of cooking skills. He sheepishly admits he's been trying to eat healthier, which earns her approval and a light-hearted remark about his progress. They decide to play a video game together. Arisa studies his collection with intense focus, her gaze flitting between titles before selecting one. Yuzuru sets it up and hands her the controller. Her awkward grip makes it clear she's unfamiliar with gaming. Yuzuru chuckles, stepping behind her to guide her hands. The proximity makes her shy, and she mumbles a quiet thanks before immersing herself in the game. As they play, she casually mentions being bullied at school. Yuzuru's chest tightens, though he isn't entirely surprised. He reassures her in his way, imposing playful in-game restrictions for fun. Arisa refuses to be coddled, insisting on fair treatment. Yuzuru relents, teasing her about being a beginner. To his astonishment, Arisa dominates the game, her calm focus unnerving. Despite his best efforts, she wins easily. Yuzuru, though stunned, finds himself secretly pleased by her rare smile, though he hides it behind a feigned nonchalance. When he asks how she's so skilled without owning games, Arisa mentions her strict upbringing. Her mother discouraged distractions, enforcing a regimen of study and discipline. Yuzuru realizes that his apartment offers her a rare chance to unwind. Her honesty tugs at him, but she snaps him out of his thoughts by pointing out his poor gaming skills. Yuzuru jokes in return, but Arisa remains serious, critiquing his habit of buying items he barely uses. Her gaze shifts to his kitchen utensils and workout equipment. He defends himself, mentioning occasional workouts with friends. He offers to show off his muscles, lifting his shirt teasingly. Arisa quickly averts her gaze, cheeks flushing, which he finds endearing. Switching topics, he offers to make coffee. Arisa requests milk and sugar, and Yuzuru confidently sets to work. With a sleek coffee machine, he prepares 2 cups and brings them to the table along with a small box of sweets. Arisa immediately recognizes the milk's high quality and selects a strawberry shortcake from the sweets. Her first bite earns a soft gasp of delight. Though the coffee's bitterness makes her grimace, Yuzuru laughs, her reaction catching him off guard. Adding sugar, Arisa scolds him lightly, earning a playful smirk in response. Their conversation shifts to his friends. Arisa listens attentively as he describes Suichiro and Ryuzenji. Though unfamiliar with them, she notes their popularity among girls at school. Yuzuru agrees but highlights their contrasting personalities, drawing a whisper from her. When he tries to coax her thoughts on the matter, she shakes her head, leaving him curious and amused by her subtle hesitation. They sit side by side in the living room, deeply immersed in their video game. He decides to distract her by casually complimenting her cooking. He mentions her nikujiga soup, marveling at how the sweetness and flavor are in perfect harmony. Arisa blushes, her focus slipping from the game. He continues to talk about the soup, trying to distract her enough to win. But to his surprise, the game ends with her victory. She smirks, clearly seeing through his scheme, and comments that his compliments sounded rather forced. Yuzuru laughs awkwardly, admitting he may have overdone it. But he genuinely enjoyed her soup. Arisa, knowing her cooking is good, admits that she doesn't particularly enjoy it. It's simply something she prepares for herself back home. Yuzuru insists that her cooking is truly delicious, and asks if he can have more. Arisa, absent-mindedly rubbing her leg, teases him by asking if he wants more today. Since he treated her to cake, she's happy to return the favor. Yuzuru smiles warmly, and soon Arisa is cooking a variety of extravagant dishes, surprising him. She dismisses it, saying it's no big deal, and joking that even he could make something simple like Hayako if he had fresh tofu. Yuzuru feels guilty for making her cook, but expresses sincere thanks. Arisa, in return, thanks him for the cake and the fun gaming session. She mentions that she cooks for her family as well, which Yuzuru already knows. She wonders aloud if her family's advice to win him over through cooking has other motives, like securing his family's assets. Yuzuru laughs, joking that she's already won over his stomach. She grins and reminds him to eat before the food gets cold. They sit down to eat, offering a brief prayer before beginning. Yuzuru takes his first sip and is stunned by the taste. Arisa didn't do anything special to enhance it. It's just her natural ability. He compliments her cooking again, reminding her to consider portion sizes. She brushes it off, saying good food speaks for itself. As Yuzuru eats, Arisa watches him with a wary look, suspicious of his praise. He reassures her, but she remains doubtful and points out there's still food left. Yuzuru eagerly asks for seconds, handing her his plate. She heads to the kitchen to heat more food, and he watches her from the couch, wondering if she realizes how serious he is about her cooking. Later, Yuzuru walks Arisa to the station. She notices that he takes the roadside, something she hadn't observed about him before. He recalls his friend's advice, but pretends he learned it from his parents, feeling embarrassed about admitting the truth. Arisa feels guilty, thinking she has caused trouble for him with his family, but Yuzuru quickly reassures her that his parents are kind. She relaxes slightly, though her expression turns somber when he asks about her parents. After a brief pause, Arisa admits she was scolded in the past for her mistakes. Yuzuru notices her sadness and decides to change the topic, hoping to cheer her up. She appreciates his consideration, grateful that he respects her boundaries. He encourages her to be honest about her feelings, which surprises her. Though she finds him a bit irritating, she smiles and thanks him for respecting her. At the station, she thanks Yuzuru for the day's enjoyment. He reflects on the day with her, and she offers to play games again next week. Yuzuru agrees but insists he doesn't want her to feel obligated. He simply enjoys spending time with her. Arisa laughs, admitting she enjoys cooking for him because it's easier than cooking for her whole family. Yuzuru offers to help next time, telling her she's welcome to visit anytime. From that day forward, Arisa begins visiting Yuzuru's apartment every Saturday to play games and cook for him. About a month into this routine, Yuzuru is lounging in his living room when his phone rings. It's his grandfather, and Yuzuru immediately knows the call is important. His grandfather informs him of an upcoming event in 7 days, the birthday of a young lady from the Mochi family. Yuzuru straightens up, realizing this has everything to do with his engagement. His grandfather's tone is serious, reminding him that good couples always remember important dates. Wanting to sound confident, Yuzuru assures him that he'll pick out the perfect gift. His grandfather seems satisfied, but then wistfully adds that he hopes to live long enough to see his great-grandchild's future. After the call ends, Yuzuru slumps back, feeling a mix of frustration and obligation. His grandfather's words linger in his mind, making him realize he needs to handle this situation carefully. Not sure what to get, Yuzuru turns to his friend Soichiro for advice. Soichiro explains that thank you gifts and birthday presents are different. Surprise and excitement are key elements. While helpful, the advice doesn't completely solve Yuzuru's dilemma. He also recalls Rizenji's opinion, but that doesn't help either. Frustrated, he figures getting a girl's perspective might be the best option. He decides to visit his childhood friend, Tachibana Ayaka. At first, she misunderstands, thinking he's there to confess his feelings. He quickly clears up the confusion, explaining that he just needs advice on picking a birthday present for another girl. Ayaka asks a few questions and points out that accessories might not be the best choice since he doesn't know the girl well, and there's no romantic connection between them. Struggling to define their relationship, Yuzuru eventually admits they share a common goal, but aren't exactly close. Understanding his predicament, Ayaka suggests a thoughtful but neutral gift, something like an assortment of sweets. While Yuzuru had already considered this idea, he worries it might come across as impersonal or fail to meet his grandfather's expectations. As they discuss different sweets, he wonders if a cake might be a good choice but remains unsure. Just then, Chiharu joins the conversation. After Ayaka fills her in, Chiharu suggests cosmetics, saying it's a gift she personally loves receiving. Ayaka agrees, noting that it could leave a good impression. Encouraged by their input, Yuzuru decides to take their advice. As he heads out, the girls cheer him on and wish him luck. But despite their support, he can't shake the uncertainty about his relationship.